So when you ask me about jobs, all of the jobs are not going to go away all at once, but it's going to change. And many of the jobs will go away. I, however, am not a proponent, still Aralam speaking, I am not a proponent of AI where it is controlling all of society.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Melissa Gates Perry, an intuitive channel and author of Being Humans, where she shares her 30-year journey with profound insights from her spirit guide, Aralam. Welcome to the podcast, Melissa. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I love to be on a podcast, particularly where it's someone or a person that I've not met. And I hadn't met you, so I was thrilled to meet you. And you have such an amazing following and an amazing group of people that listen to your work. And so I'm thrilled to be here. Very thrilled. And as you know, the way this works for me is that I kind of open my doors to, I say my energetic doors to the right of me here. So Aralam is standing here right next to me. And so I'm able to channel him in real time, sort of without having to close my eyes or get in a trance or any of that stuff, which is nice for me because I'm a talker. So I love to be in the conversation as well. So that's how this will work. So anything that you want to ask Aralam, or if you want me to talk a little bit about me, or however you want to do it, Aralam is present and hearing you in real time. So that's nice as well.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. In fact, a lot of my guests who are coming up recently, they don't do trance. I think trance doesn't happen. It's more, they call it blended consciousness or, right?
Yeah. And for me, what's interesting is that, and I'll talk to people in sessions, and sometimes if people are energy workers or healers, or they're doing work themselves, or they're just on the spiritual journey, they will ask me, where do you feel Aralam? In other words, if Aralam's getting ready to speak, where do you feel that in your body? And it's very, very interesting because for the longest time, I couldn't really describe it well, but now I tell people, if you're aware of the third eye chakra, right? Everyone has their third eye chakra here. And so for me, I literally feel Aralam's connection with me about 2 inches in my brain, in the actual organic brain, behind my third eye chakra. It's almost as if like it's a radio tuner, an old fashioned. Everybody's got their phone now. No one has radio anymore. But if you had a radio, it's like tuning. And so that's literally where kind of Aralam connects with me and then uses my throat chakra to speak with others. So it's interesting. And so many people now are channeling that aren't having to be in a trance. And one of the reasons for that, Tanya, is that the ascension is happening. So the energy on this planet is changing, and it doesn't matter what your religious background is or what your spiritual path is. That ascension and all of that energy that's shifting up is making it so that everyone is having openings sort of at their own speed and in their own time spiritually. So it's amazing. It's an amazing time to be on the planet. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%, 100%. It's a great time to be on the planet right now.
It's a hard time sometimes, but it's a great time. It's like at the same time, it's very challenging, but it's also miraculous. Yeah, there's that up and down with it.
Yeah, up and down. I'm my hi to Aralam as well. But before we get speaking with our spirit guide, I wanted you to share a little bit about your journey and what got you or inspired you to be on the path that you're on right now.
Yeah. So, and for anyone who read the book, it's Being Humans, and I'm not trying to sell a book. As a matter of fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, but if you go to my YouTube channel right now, I'm reading the chapters into YouTube for free. So anyone who wants to go to my YouTube channel and listen to me read the chapters of the book, they can. Or obviously you can read it yourself. So, but for me, I had a childhood that was really difficult. I came up in a childhood like a lot of people do in this timeline, with alcoholism and drug abuse. My parents were very, very young. My mother was 15 when she became pregnant with me in 1964. I'm an old lady compared to you. So, and my father was 17. They were high school kids. And ultimately what happened for me was that childhood for me was very, very traumatic. It wasn't a good childhood. So then kind of fast forward, the way that Aralam came into my life was that I had this incredible experience, which people read it in the book and they think sounds like a movie. It sounds like a movie, but it wasn't. It really happened to me. And basically what happened is I was very young. I was 21. I had my son who was about a year and a half old. I was single. I was living in a trailer park. I was literally being the stereotypical 21-year-old kind of young mother with no father around, living in a trailer park. I was partying too much, absolutely was. And I had started to have a relationship with a dear friend who was about 10 years older than me. Well, his best friend was also my best friend. And that gentleman started to talk to me at this very young age about tarot and about energy and about energy work. And I really didn't know a lot about any of it, but he kept saying to me, you're very sensitive. You're a very sensitive soul, and, you could do this work. Well, ultimately, the story from him came out that he'd been involved with a group of people who were very, very powerful and very, very much into dark energy. Now, when I say that to people, there are people who say, is that a real thing? Is that real on the planet? Well, now I think this was in 1983, 84, but now I think people understand energy is powerful and people can learn to wield energy, and it can be positive and it can be difficult and dark. So he was involved with a group like that. He'd left them, and when he left them, they were angry. So he was trying to get me to sort of learn some of this energy work with him in order to sort of combat this group of people. And ultimately I said to him, no, first I said, I think you're crazy, because I didn't believe him at all. And secondly, it made me fearful. I didn't like the feel of that. So what he did was, after I said, no, I'm not going to help you, he one day gave me, and there were other circumstances around this, but I don't want to spend an hour sort of talking about this, but the cutting right to the chase of how Aralam came into my world was that he wrote me this note, this letter, and he sealed it up and he gave it to me one day. And he said to me, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to open this, but don't open it if nothing happens to me. And of course, that's like a movie, right? That's the movie script. And I said to him, you're being crazy. This is so crazy. It's crazy. Well, 4 days later, my boyfriend at the time and he got in a car accident, which wasn't a terrible accident, but he was killed. And so the next morning I woke up and a friend called and said, did you hear what happened? And I hadn't heard. And she told me, and I thought, this can't be real. This can't be, I was devastated, but also, so I ran to my jacket, I pulled this note out. And when I opened the note, he had written to me a one-page sort of letter that said, if you're reading this, then they have gotten to me. They've taken me out. They've gotten to me. And if you're reading this, I want you to understand, because we were in a small town, a very small town. He said, these people are going to come to town as my old friends. They're going to come to my funeral. They're going to come to the parties for me. They're going to be here. They're going to be looking around because they knew that I was working with someone, or they knew that I was trying to work with someone. So you can't go to my funeral. You can't go to the parties. Don't leave flowers on my grave. Don't do any of that. Just go about your business and don't do any of that. So Tanya, when that happened to me, it was like having an experience where everything that you sort of thought was reality was turned completely upside down. When someone says, all your toys are in this box, and then something happens in your life and the toy box gets completely turned over. So I've never been so terrified in my life. I have never been so terrified in my life. 3 days later, there was a big funeral and a big party for him. And I stayed home. I didn't go to any of it. And a friend of mine called from the big party at this bar and said, oh, all of his friends are here from the coast. They've all come in. You've got to come to the party. And I did not. I didn't go. Later that night, I was awakened. And again, this sounds like a movie, but I came awake in my bed and I sensed, could feel, even see that someone or some energy or something was sort of in my home. I could feel it. It was as if they were looking for something, right? Probably me. And when that happened, I started praying. I started praying to your gods, to my gods, to whoever created this universe. I started praying in earnest, please let me know what you want me to do. And please send me help. Like, don't leave me hanging out here on this limb where everything that I thought was true isn't true, and everything that I thought was fake could be real. And it was very frightening. And so that next morning, and I'm making this very, very short. If you read it in the book, it's a much more detailed story. But the next morning I woke up and I knew and felt a presence in my world. It was as if suddenly there was a big uncle or brother or someone standing in the room with me silently, and I felt very protected. I thought, okay, this is good. I didn't have a name at that point, but I knew. And for the next year and a half, I just felt very protected. I understood that someone, something that was good had shown up. My prayer had been answered. And at that time, Aralam wasn't doing anything. There was just a presence. It was just this, like a big brother or a fatherly kind of presence. And then as the next couple of years moved along, I became very comfortable with that. And then one day in that very same kitchen, in that trailer that I was living in at the time, I said right out loud, thank you for being here. I was basically thanking him for his presence. And I said, you must have a name. And just like that in my mind, in here where Aralam talks now through me, I heard Aralam, and I grabbed a pen and I wrote it on a napkin. It was just, I had a napkin on the counter. I wrote Aralam on a napkin and I said, okay, then. Okay, Aralam, thank you. And from that day forward, the communication just started to get more and more. And of course, 30 years later, this is where we are. And so the book got written and all of that. But I've been doing the work with people for a really long time. And for a long time, it was very much under the radar because the book hadn't come out. So people they only knew how to find me I would get a phone call. I joke with people and say my business model for the first 25 years was I would get a phone call from someone who would say, my ex-husband's cousin's sister said that you do these readings. Could you call her? And that was my whole business model, but it worked and it helped a lot of people. So when the book was going to be written, Aralam wrote his parts and I wrote my parts, and the book got released. And then I was lucky enough, I self-published it. So I was lucky enough that Jeff Mara, I don't know if you've heard of Jeff
Yes,
Mara,
of course.
got into his hands, and he got a hold of me and said, listen, if you're going to come on the podcast, you need a website and you need a YouTube channel, because I didn't have either of those things. Right. And so I did that, and it's put me in front of and being able to talk with and help a ton of people. So that's how Aralam came. And again, that sounds like a movie. It sounds like a movie, but I'm telling you, I lived it and it was frightening. It was a huge wake up call. And it was also for me a big part of the ascension that's happening. And I mean, you talk with people all the time who are like myself, very aware of how the energy is shifting for every human being on the planet. So that's how I met Aralam. That is how he came into my life.
Hey guys, if you've been enjoying this video so far, please make sure to support this channel. You can either subscribe to the channel, leave a like or a comment, or even share it with your family and friends. Apparently, it helps with the algorithm and I have no idea how that works. Also, I'm sending out weekly love notes where I'm sharing with you my own personal spirituality journey, and also will keep you posted on the upcoming community events that we have. We have a lot lined up for you. We've got group channeling events, Akashic record reading events, and a lot of such community events that I think you're going to absolutely love. All you have to do is go to www.celestevolve.com/love notes. Now let's get back to the video. Wow, all of those years back, were there channelers there? How did you deal with it? Where did you go for help? How did you deal with this, your psychic abilities just like opening up?
Opening.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as well known then at all, because you're talking about the kind of mid 80s into the early 90s. And here's the interesting thing. I grew up in a family of born again Christians, mostly. So this work for them, particularly initially, was like, what is going on here? So I did two things. The first thing I did was I went to the pastor at our church, and I went to him on a Wednesday, and I'll never forget it. He's passed away now, but we sat in a pew and I started talking to him about what was happening to me. And I said, if you tell me that this is a terrible thing and that it's not going to help people and that I shouldn't be doing it, I'll at least take that in. It didn't feel like that to me. I knew that wasn't the case, but I trusted him enough to be honest with me. And, he said to me, and this is a wonderful human being, he said, listen, he said, I can't tell you that I completely understand what's going on, but I know you. I've known you since you're a child. And if God has gifted you in this way, then you need to follow God's direction. And he was talking as a born again Christian pastor. But the other thing he said to me was this: I would not wish this gift on anyone, because that road's going to be hard for a while. He said, so just stay true to what you believe about yourself and that you understand that you have this connection with creation. So that was the first person I talked to. So that kind of gave me that feeling of, okay, now that could have gone a very different way. But luckily, he was the kind of human being that wasn't going to be, difficult for me in that way. Then the second thing I did is I immediately went and found myself this wonderful kind of counselor because I hadn't really dealt with a lot of my childhood issues, but she was also someone who was a shaman. So she was an actual PhD psychiatrist, but she also had gone through shaman training, like the real shaman training. So I saw her for about a year and a half and we talked through it, talked about it. And she said, you know what? You're just evolving. You're just evolving. And then she started to give me books of other people, and some of them older, the Edgar Cayce or the Dolores Cannon work, all those kinds of people. And so I ended up having two really good people in my life when I was much, much younger who helped me not to panic. Because here's the other thing, Tanya, you're much younger than me. But at that time, if someone had come and said to the general population, hey, by the way, in 2024 and 2025, your governments are going to be talking about off-world species. There's going to be all of this spiritual change happening. There's going to be all of this ascension and spiritual opening happening. People wouldn't have believed that at all, right? They wouldn't have believed that. But Aralam was always sharing information with me that was about 20 years ahead of its time, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
for me, it was like it was shocking to me 20 years ago, but now it's not so much because I've worked myself into it in that way. So yeah, so that's how I sort of had, like I said, good people who helped me. But in return now, so many of the people that I talk to in sessions or that listen to the YouTube videos or the podcast, these are people that are just now, and you meet them as well. People that are just now, they're starting to feel the ascension. They're starting to feel the shift. They're feeling too what Aralam calls the great falling away. Aralam will say there's this great falling away, and he started talking about it in 2017. And the great falling away is this sort of area energetically where things that always seemed very concrete begin to be sort of toppled over, and those beliefs, and it can even be buildings or things that people do or environment, it begins to fall away. And so people are feeling that. And so it's important that people understand that everyone's ascending and there's no need to panic, right? So a lot of my work that I do is really talking to people about their gifts, about their spiritual openings, what does it mean for them, and that they don't have to panic, right? They don't have to panic.
When you spoke about your pastor, your priest helping
Yes.
you out, you know what's funny? I get DMs from a pastor in UAE messaging me saying that I think I'm channeling, but he doesn't want to share it
He
because
doesn't want to share it.
he's afraid of how the church is going to react to what he says,
Yes.
right? So then they don't want to make it public. So I invited him to come on the podcast, but then they're afraid of what it's going to be because they don't
Yeah.
know what it is.
Yeah.
And there's also a place here called the Handmaids of the Lord, where do you know what that is?
You know what? I have heard that, but I have no idea. In other words, I've heard that, but I have no idea what it is. So tell me what that is, because it sounds familiar to me, but I don't know what it is.
If I, yeah, even I actually wanted you to ask Aralam as well, because Handmaids of the Lord. So there was a colleague of mine at work, and you know what I do? I would just like throw in a little bit of ET and that and this, and then I see if they react.
Yeah.
And if they react, then I would like open up about these topic and talk to them. And one of my colleague, I spoke to her, and I had no idea that in people in the UAE are into these kind of things. But she said that there's a place called Handmaids of the Lord in Jebel Ali, Dubai, where the nuns would pray over them, and then suddenly they start channeling light language, or they call it the Pentecost.
Yes.
What does Aralam have to say
So,
about it?
so Aralam speaking, Aralam speaking, Aralam speaking. First, Tanya, thank you for having us here today. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us. So let me say this to you, the handmaidens of the Lord and the energy that they're using, they are directly tapping into what I'm going to call is the Essene energy. You remember that in the Middle Eastern area of the world, before the divisions were put in place, the Essenes, the Essenes were almost the first Christians in a way, except that the Christian church then pushed them out of the formal religion. The Essenes had both the knowledge of reincarnation and the knowledge of energy and the knowledge of the saints. So they pulled all of the knowledge of the one God together, the Essenes. So what these nuns are doing, or what these temple priestesses are doing and have been doing, is they are literally channeling energy so that the body, the human, the soul that they're channeling the energy to can then relay new and evolutionary spiritual information to those who would hear it. So they're very much connected with the energy of the Essenes. Very, very much. As a matter of fact, I can tell you, still Aralam speaking, many of the souls who are on the planet now that are in those groups and in that particular sort of religious following, they are literally reincarnated Essenes from that ancient time. They're coming in again to bring knowledge, because the Essenes came in a time when all of the knowledge was supposed to get released to the whole of the planet, not only through the soul of the Jesus character, but also through the belief in the reincarnation and bringing it all together. And it was usurped. It was usurped by the governments on the planet that then said, no, 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 we've got to make this much, much of a narrower belief. We can't have all of this in there. We can't have women in it, right? We can't have the reincarnative piece in it, although it should have been there from the beginning. And so that is what they're doing, and that is who they are. And they may know that as well. Still Aralam speaking. I can see by looking into that group just a little bit as we're talking, that there are many of them leading that group that understand that they are reincarnated souls and have lived Essene lifetimes. So that's who they are. That's who they are. And it would be interesting if you could get any one of them to speak more publicly as well from that group. You may think about wanting to do
Wow.
that.
I never thought about it. That's amazing. You know, I know Essenes because there's a book that Dolores Cannon wrote, Jesus and the Essenes. So I just got
Yes.
goosebumps when I heard
Yeah,
it because,
I did too. I did too, actually. I got all, when he started talking about these scenes. Well, and you figure, and this is me speaking, but when Aralam's talking about these scenes, the scenes came into our history at a time when, and like he said, it was a time when everyone was supposed to get some really basic, powerful knowledge about their own spiritual connection to creation. But you had the Romans and you had the Jewish state and you had all of these different people coming in and saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want to give the peasants the keys to the kingdom, right? We've got to be between the peasants and their God. And that's really what they did. That's really what they did. And the Essenes were fighting against that. And the Essenes were also powerful because they understood. And Jesus, there are books that talk about Jesus having walked for what, 10 or 3 or 5 years with the Essenes, meaning when it says that he walked with them, it means that he studied with them, right? He also was in Tibet, the Tibetans, right? And they had the whole other piece of the reincarnative and the souls and the movement of souls. So it's very interesting, but it would be interesting for you to have connection with them in some way.
that's amazing. I'm going to go to Jebel Ali and find that out. Maybe I would get to speak to them. I got so excited to ask about this because you were talking about the pastors, right? But let's go back and start a little bit. I want to ask Aralam, what is it like when he is talking to us? Like, what does he see? Does he see energy? What is the space that he in? Can he describe the dimension that he is in right now to us?
Okay. Aralam speaking. So the dimension where I am standing is what Melissa refers to as the lobby, but it's the 89th level of creation. So this is the level of creation. I say the creation of, the levels of the creator God, right? Creation. This is the level where every soul who is getting ready to go into a lifetime, whether it's on Earth or any other inhabited planet in the universe, this is the level of energy where you go into a lifetime from. It's also the level of energy where your lifetime contracted soul guide will be. And looking over the Akashic records, it's where the Akashic records exist here on this 89th level. It's as if you will, it's the sort of coming and going for souls. It's where you get ready to take a trip into a lifetime. When you eventually drop your organic body, Tanya, it's where your soul will come back to. Now, it is a vast area. So I am standing here showing Melissa a kind of an energetic body. I don't have to be made of energy. I don't have to show her anything, but for her mind to connect with me in the way that it is now, so that I can use her voice box in the way that I am now, I let her see a kind of energetic signature, sort of a body. So she sees this body, she'll say to people, of an 80-year-old retired college professor. This is sort of how she envisions me. Where I am standing, the energy and the light of this level, it is opaline in nature. When I say opaline, I mean if you could see a big, white, beautiful opal that you could hold in your hands, that opal would have that shimmery, white, milky kind of energy about it, that color, but it also has every other color you can imagine sort of glinting in it. That's what the energy body of the 89th level is about. So that's what it looks like to me. But what I need you to understand too is that because this energy is, it is nothing and everything all at the same time, meaning this is why when Melissa looks to her right out into what she calls the lobby, she may see sort of the Akashic records. She may see souls coming and going in a swirl of energy. She may see what looks like a big opening out to a park or a meadow. She sees all of that because the energy can be what you need it to be in order for you to understand it. Does that make sense? So when I am translating through her body right now, what I see of Earth is everything that she sees with her eyes. So I'm seeing you as you are sitting there. I am seeing everything around her as it is. But when I leave her body, I'm seeing the portal. And the portal to me looks to be mirror-like. Right?
Oh.
If I'm not connected with Melissa, when I pull back and I'm standing here and she begins talking to you, I see the portal, her door. She talks about opening her doors. So it almost looks like this clear, glassy pond, right? It's just an opening. But when I come through it, I'm having her experience. And when you travel and lose your body and travel back here, it's what people describe as the tunnel, right? You're coming back toward this place and eventually it opens and you're in this immense open space of light. And then things, people, objects, whatever you need to see, whatever you want to be greeted by, comes toward you within this opaline energy. I hope that describes that for you.
Wow.
So I'm going to say this. This is me interrupting. This is me speaking. When he says that, it's so interesting because when he comes in and is talking, I feel it sort of here. But when he starts talking about me in the third person and he's touching my throat and all that stuff, it's such a strange feeling because it's almost like it's almost like that when people say I'm chewing gum and trying to juggle at the same time. It's very interesting. But he's right about the opaline energy because what I do is right before we came on, I open what I call my big energetic doors. And it's like I have this big 8x8 opening. And what I see is Aralam standing in this very sort of fluid energy that it looks like opal colored, right? I don't pull it toward me. I let it roll over me like a waterfall. So I'm never reaching out to connect. I'm just becoming very, very open to the energy and it just rolls over me like a soft waterfall and kind of, so that's my connection. So it's really a beautiful way to connect because then I don't have to do anything. Really, I don't have to do very much. I just have to be open and trusting and have faith and understand this is what I'm going to do, right? And so that's what it looks like to him. He just described it to you. And it's really interesting too, because I've never heard anyone ask that question. So that was a great question for him to answer for you. That was a great question because I sort of got to see it as well. I'd not really ever thought about what he was experiencing coming through in this way. So you'd think I would have, but I hadn't,
That's
right?
wonderful.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was a Korean series that I watched. It's called The Eternal Monarch. So, in that series, they talk about portals. It's like there would be two obelisks, and then they would go through that portal, and then there is a parallel universe. So, there are multiple parallel universes. So, if it's me, if I'm an engineer in this universe and I go through that portal and I go to the other universe, and I might be a doctor in that. If I go and open another door, I would be probably something else in that universe. So, and there are infinite doors to these parallel universes. Is this true? Is there any reality to this?
So Aralam's hand is up. Aralam's speaking. So Tanya, I'm glad you asked this question. And here is why. Your soul will not be engaged in multiple universes at the same time. There was a time when that was happening often, but now in the universe, the creator God, because the universe is in this evolution. So there's this feeling on planet Earth that only Earth is in this ascension. But the truth is that the whole universe is in an ascension right now. And it's always evolving at a slow rate, but the universe is evolving quickly now, and Earth is literally trying to catch up. Earth is catching up to a baseline in order to go with the rest of the universe. So for some time now, there are other universes in existence, yes, but in the last 3 ages of man, I'm going to say, the last 3 ages of man would be the last 60 or 70,000 years on Earth time. In the last 3 ages of man, you haven't been living multiple lifetimes in different universes. Now, the thing that you are doing in this lifetime, and this is part of the answer to the question about the portals, most souls, but you particularly as well, and this is why it interests you, most souls now on planet Earth, still Aralam speaking, most souls now on planet Earth are having a heightened ability to travel in a lateral movement and see many of their past lives. Some of those past lives, for some of you, have been in other universes. Do you see? So some of you are remembering and seeing who you were at other times. And in some of those lifetimes, you would have been even more highly evolved in that species than Earthlings are today. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, it's possible, but right now in the universe, that's not happening simply because the universe is shifting itself up so quickly. So I'm going to say this. So does that answer your question? Because people ask that a lot about, are you and I having completely different lifetimes in a multiple different universes? And if you shift your attention, can you sort of see or move to that other universe? So what he's saying is at times, yes, that's true. There are times on planet Earth when that's been possible. But right now, because we're in this dramatic climb energetically, everybody's kind of in this lifetime. So you're not doing that at this time, but it is a possibility. So isn't that interesting?
That was
Right?
so
Because
interesting.
everybody who's on planet Earth right now, every soul who's here, and Aralam says this to people across the board, every soul who is here right now came here because of where Earth is now. We are one of the most, and he'll say to people, believe it or not, in the whole universe, wars and everything else taken into consideration, Earth is one of the hardest places to be right now. And the reason that it's so hard to be here is because everything that souls have believed to be concretely true, whether it's spiritual, religious, government, environment, food, belief systems, psyche, everything that we have believed concretely to be true, it's all being turned over right now. And that is such a hard place to be in because every day, I mean, you know this, right? Every day on many levels, you wake up and you think, okay, I'm going to get balanced today. And if you hear something new that's like this new thing happening, you'll think, I'm not even going to watch that yet. I'm not going to watch that yet. I'm not even going to think about that yet because I've got to get balanced. I've got to take all this in, get balanced, and start again. And everybody's right there. And so Earth is this incredible opportunity for every soul that's here. The other thing about this, and this has to do with the universe and the past lives, Aralam will say to people in sessions now, he'll say, listen, don't worry about your past lives right now. Look at your life right now. Do everything that you can do to heal yourself, heal those around you, heal the relationships, forgive, 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 release pain, grow. Look at everything new that interests you. Start to move in the directions that feel good to your soul and not what you think you have to do, right? Don't pay attention to what anything, any societal structure, any religion, any job, don't pay attention to what people are trying to make you do. You do the thing. Start with your soul first. Lead with your soul. He'll say to people, what if tomorrow you woke up and for just one day, every decision that you made, you asked your soul first, what should I do about this? Whether it's drinking your coffee or taking that, whatever you're doing, think about that day against the other days where you do all the things that you feel like you've got to do, right? It's a difference, and we're all shifting into that. And so it's incredible. It's incredible. incredible.
This is true. When you say that all the things that we had known has fallen off, last year, this time, I had no idea about this word called Ascension, New Earth, nothing. But once I watched a video, it's like I finally came across what I was searching for. Then,
Yeah.
yeah.
You'll say to yourself, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, even I'll say to Aralam, I'll see something, and I'll say to him, "What is that about?" And he'll talk to me about it, and then I'll say, "Why didn't you tell me that?" And he'll say, "Well, you didn't ask me. I'm not going to just you. If you don't ask me, I can't tell you something." But then I'll think, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, right? Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And that's where everyone is. And so here's the important thing about the work you're doing. Actually, Aralam's raising his hand here. Aralam's speaking. Aralam's speaking. Tanya, I wanted to say this to you. The reason that your work is so incredibly important is because for every person like you or Melissa who is 30% or 40% or 50% along the growth path, there are millions and millions of other souls who are just now, they're not on their spiritual growth path at all. They don't have any memory about why they came to the planet, and they're just barely putting their feet in the position where they might pivot and start to look at themselves a little bit differently. Your work is the kind of work that those people are going to find first, right? Someone who's on your podcast, something you say will be the thing that triggers them to take a look at something. And then suddenly they realize, I need to look at who I am and what's my part here. What part do I play on the planet? What really is going on here? Who are we as humans? And if they're off-world species, how long have they been here? And how long have they known about us, right? All of those questions. So your work becomes phenomenally important because even when you are fast asleep, someone on the other side of the world, still Aralam speaking, can be looking at a podcast that you're doing and it can be changing their life while you're sleeping. Do you see? And it's the same. And it's what I said to Melissa about the Being Humans book, because she'll be doing something else. She'll be doing something mundane. She may be doing her laundry, and there will be somebody on the other side of the world reading her book or listening to her read it, and it's changing their paradigm for the better. And she's just put it out there, just like you are. And so if and when you have a day where you think, am I where I'm supposed to be? Is this working the way that I want it to work? Is it big enough? Is it big enough? It's absolutely going to be big enough. You are absolutely where you're meant to be. So know that. Okay, so Aralam speaking there. That's so funny. I love when he just says to people, listen, he'll be like, listen, don't question what you're doing because you're doing the big work. So that's awesome. So how does that feel to you for him to be kind of saying that to you in that way?
Well, that's a question that I ask every single day. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so I have a question for you, and I realize that, and I'm just going to ask it because I don't know. So how does your upbringing and kind of your background, how has that worked for you? Because I realize that some of what I'm saying or some of what the people that you have on this may not be information that is widely kind of embraced in your kind of background. And I don't know whether to say religious background or ethnic background or the combination of the two. So you are, like Aralam said, you're really doing the big work.
Yeah, well, from when I started talking about it, I think everyone around me thought this is just a phase and I will get over it. I'll come
Oh
out of
yeah.
it. So they thought, okay, now she's just, gone crazy. She'll come out of it. So they kind of waited. But then I'm not changing. I'm just going deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah, because you're learning more and more.
I'm learning more and more. But the good thing is that right now, I don't really care so much about what people are saying now because I
Right.
get so excited to speak to my
Yes.
guest. So
Yes.
then it's like even the biggest skeptics, they are like what Aralam said, they're also. Could there be some truth to it? Is Reiki real? Why don't you do some Reiki? So they're opening up to it.
Yes.
A
Yes.
lot of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Aralam's hand is up here. Aralam speaking. And so, Tanya, you mentioned Reiki, and I can tell you that there are millions and millions of healing and health spiritual practitioner type souls who are on the planet right now, specifically to push forward all of the health paradigms that are happening now. Because in the next 9 years now, off-world species are going to be here. they will be here in a way that people understand them to truly be here. It won't be undercover. It won't be something that's hidden, because they'll be here. And all of the different technologies, whether it's energy or healthcare, even social kind of norms, everything is going to be transformed in a positive way. So anyone who comes to the planet now who is looking at Reiki or energy healing, any of the frequency healing, now you are definitely in communications. Melissa has the communications gift as well. The reason that you're doing your podcast is because for you as a soul, spiritual communications is what you've come to do. That's your specialty. And I think that you know that, although still Aralam speaking, it may be that no one has ever said that to you directly, but that is your spiritual specialty. And you're not a young soul, by the way. You've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes off planet Earth and on Earth. So you are exactly where you're meant to be. And this is also why for you, still Aralam speaking, for you, and I want to be very respectful about this because this is a public forum, but for you, you have a very highly tuned sense of when you study something or when you speak to someone or when you hear someone speak, you have a highly tuned sense of the truth in it or the non-truth in it. Do you see? So you have that ability, and you know this, but you have that ability, and it makes you powerful in this position that you're working into and that you'll be doing more of. So me speaking. It's so funny when Aralam says to someone respectfully, I always think, oh my gosh, what's he going to say? No, but that's interesting. So, and not to make it totally, I'm now turning the interview around. I'm asking you questions, but I mean, does that kind of resonate with you that you have that sort of deep ability to kind of like read something or see something or talk to someone or listen to someone speak, and like immediately spiritually, you'll be like, that's for real. That's not so much. Like you kind of have that ability, which makes you powerful.
Well, what's happened with me is that like I never questioned the channelers. I never questioned channelers, but sometimes when they speak on the podcast, like I find it very hard to accept it. And at that point of time, I criticize myself because I'm like, why am I not able to believe it? There must be something wrong with me, right?
Yeah, and there's not. There's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And Aralam, and isn't it interesting that he just said to you that you have this ability from a spiritual and psychic kind of, you have that ability to weed out. And so if you talk, and it could be anything, it could be that you're looking at someone on YouTube that you've never spoken with, and you'll have a sense of, this resonates really well. This is real to me. This resonates with me. And then you might have a sense of it not resonating with you, but you need to trust that. Every soul on the planet right now needs to start to trust their discernment, right?
Yeah.
Start to trust, whether it's a job or a relationship or someone that they're learning from or anything. Everyone needs to start to really try to use their own discernment and trust that. Because again, that ascension, what is that ascension doing? It's opening up everyone's spiritual gifts. And here's the thing, whether you want them to be open or not, because the planet is making a new planet, whether you want your spiritual gifts to be opening, they're going to be opening anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to use your spiritual gifts, but you certainly can use them in your own life, right? To work on your own life, your own questions, kind of your own intuition, all of that. Because that's what ascension does. It raises everyone from this three-dimensional standpoint, and it gives everybody sort of that leg up into something newer and more authentic as humans and as souls. So and again, it's why it makes it so amazing to be here right now, you know.
That's it is definitely amazing. And one of the things that Aralam just said is that there's going to be, you mentioned, what was the word that you used? It's not ET, right? You used another word.
Off-world species.
Off-world species. Okay, off-world species. Now, when I speak to, like when we listen to the YouTube channels and all of the podcasts, we hear about the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, etc., etc., etc. And from what I've understood, like all of these concepts should be a lot more common knowledge to the people in India, right? And in India, there are podcasts, but the concepts that come through those podcasts in India are completely different from what that is coming out of the US or Australia or UK. I've never heard Arcturians or Pleiadians or Syrians, which is like so common in the other podcasts in India. Why is this happening?
So Aralam's hand is up here. Aralam's hand is up. Firstly, the in India and the people of India, and it's a wide and varied ethnic group, but the people, I will say the people of India from Tibet all the way to the tip of the
Yeah.
Indian continent, they have had in their scripture, in their most ancient writing, they have writing that comes from the second age of man. This is where they talk about the Vimanas, and they talk about the flying homes, and they talk about the wars in the sky. So they have a written history. And in their language, the written history, it's in their language. So when you have someone in Nevada on a podcast talking about Pleiadians or talking about Cygnans, or talking about the Arcturians or the Orion species, right? Or the Leonids. When they're talking about these species, they're utilizing Western language. They're very much using Western language. In India, some of the off-world species that were in India's most ancient history, because again, people think of the Egyptians, still Aralam speaking, people think of the Egyptians and the Sumerians as being the oldest, sort of longest lived species and social structures on planet Earth. But really, the Indian continent has been having humanoids on it, as well as off world species on it, for a much longer period of time. There were many catastrophes, some of which are just now being found. As you know, they're finding ruins, and if you don't, still Aralam speaking, you should look at this, ruins out in the Bay of Bengal, right? They're finding cities that are bigger than Manhattan that have been sunken for, they believe, uncountable numbers of years that date well back to the Sumerian tablets and before. So the reason that they don't speak about them in the same way or with the same vernacular is because they've had them in their written history forever, for 200,000 years, 250,000 years, which is different than the rest of the world, because that is actually one of the older structured civilizations, which has not been caught up with yet. That paradigm has not been known to everyone, right? And so that is why they speak of them differently. They've also always had that written information about them, and it was always looked at within their sort of religions with the multiple gods that they have. Many of those multiple gods were actually off-world species, and it was very specific to that region. So you have a mixture of the religion with the off-world species, which is different than the Western or European look at it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense because the language is definitely totally different. Like when they talk about astrology too, it's completely different.
You know, it's interesting. I have, and this is me speaking, I have some astrologers that come through sessions, and I have astrologers that, and I have Indian astrologers that come through sessions, and they come every few months to talk with Aralam. But there's this new thing happening right now on the planet, and it's Galaxial astrology. And Aralam
Ooh.
has been talking to two or three of these different astrologers about a Galaxial astrology, which is, for me, I'm not an astrologist, and I'm not a mathematician either, and I'm not an engineer. So for me to think about the idea that we're not just talking about where the planets were or the houses of the planets when you were born, but also where were all of the galaxies when you were born? And what it speaks to, and the way Aralam talks about that, is that Galaxial astrology gives astrology for a whole planet over an age. Because if the galaxies are in a certain place when your planet has, in other words, if the galaxies are moving and they're so big, it means that is Earth in its third age of man? Earth is getting ready to move into the eighth age of man. There have been 7 ages of man, and we're at the end of the 7th, right? Some of them we don't even remember or have anything written down from. Like, we don't remember, we don't know, it's lost, right? That's Galaxial astrology. That's so huge to wrap your mind around. And yet Aralam is talking to people about this in sessions because they're working on computer programs that will tell you what the Galaxial astrology is for your solar system, for your sun, for your planet, because it's like something that's going to, so whatever your birth astrology is, well, then the Earth will have an astrology the day you were born or the year you were born. Your solar system has an astrology for that. Your galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, it's huge. But Aralam tells these people, There are hundreds of thousands of species out in this universe that Galaxial astrology is just one of their sciences. See, this is where we're catching up to. Like, we have to catch up, right? We've got to actually catch up to all of this. So that's where we are. We're trying to catch up.
Oh my
We're trying to catch
goodness.
up, and it's wild. But bringing it all the way back around here, that's why I'll say the Indian continent, the Indian people and their history, that is why they have this very different view of it, because they've had knowledge of it and written history of it. I mean, the the stories about the Vimanas and the wars and in the sky and all that stuff,
Mm-mm.
we all think it's mythology. It's not mythology, it's history. Aralam says all the time, that isn't mythology, it's history from that third age,
Oh my
which is
goodness.
wild. So it's yeah, but that's why. That's why. So Aralam's hand is up here. Aralam's speaking. So Tanya, I think another question that you would have about this with the off-world species above and beyond the vernacular. So let me say this to you. The Pleiadians are what people refer to as the tall whites often, or in the book I call them the Tashal. The Pleiadians in this universe, in particular, kind of this corner of the Galaxial universe, they are what I call sort of the white hats. They are the species that are Pleiadian. They're very highly evolved. They're very well traveled. They're highly evolved with technology and spirituality and all of it. Some of the Pleiadians are a bit light beings, meaning they don't need their bodies as much anymore. The bigger part of Pleiadians, they have physical bodies, although they vibrate at a higher vibration than Earth humans. But they are the species right now that are sort of overseeing. And when I say overseeing, still Aralam speaking, I do not mean in any way controlling what's going on Earth, but they're overseeing because they realize that this is the first time in 7 ages of man where human beings are meant to make this ascension and become universal dwellers instead of planetary dwellers. The reality of that is that 90% of the human population is meant to make this paradigm shift and then understand that they're just this tiny, Earth is a small planet with a humanoid species that is rare in a way because Earth humans were seeded, and they were seeded when they were not supposed to be. The Creator God did not give sanction for humanoids to be seeded. They were seeded as a kind of a worker species. And so now what's happening is you, Melissa, all the other souls on the earth need to move into the true paradigm, which is that the universe is teeming with life, right? The universe is teeming with life. So as this happens for the first time in 7 ages of man on the planet, there isn't going to be some kind of a destructive cataclysm that takes out 90% of humanoids. Everyone is going to make this shift. So it's a huge, huge, beautiful event. And the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Cygnans, many from the Orion's belt, many Leonids, are sort of watching and basically ready to assist when the time is just right. And that time is quickly coming toward humanity. This is another reason why all of this information is so important, because you want human beings to be at least open enough to understand that maybe what they've been taught for millennia isn't the whole picture. And that's where the off-world species come into it. That's where they come into it.
That's interesting. It's true. The amount of information that comes through is crazy. Just when I think that, wow, now I know everything, there would be more stuff, new stuff. It just keeps opening up over and like it's fascinating. And everybody talks about it at the same time too.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And you
Yeah.
know what's funny for me is that in the sessions, a lot of times, because people come in and they have different questions for Aralam, and in the sessions particularly, it's not about my story at all, at all. I'm just literally an interpreter. That's all I'm doing. And people will ask questions, and then Aralam will give these long sort of descriptions of things or answers to the question. And after the session, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I learn a lot of things. I learn a lot of new things about everything. And then I'll say to him, you've never told me that. And he'll say, you never asked me that. So it's that thing where you're always learning new information, but you're right about it too. And don't they call it what do they call it? The 100th monkey? Isn't it the 100th monkey? Isn't that what it's called? Where if you have, they say the 100th monkey. So if you have, this is a scientific thing. If you have 99 monkeys on an island and they all learn how to take a seashell and cut a coconut open with it, right? They all learn to do that. If the 100th monkey has learned to do it and they swim to the island next to them, all of a sudden, every monkey on the planet will suddenly learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. We're in the 100th monkey phase of sort of our evolution, because what's happening is there's so much information coming in. And that's why Aralam said to you earlier too, and he would say this to anyone that listens to this, anything that you feel compelled to study, anything you feel drawn to that's positive, any new information, anything that strikes you, numerology, astrology, whatever it is, spiritual people, teachers, if something is drawing you in any way, you need to go ahead, put your fear away, and start to study that. Because when you do that, you're going to have those spontaneous openings. You just will. You absolutely will. And it's powerful. I mean, it's powerful. It's like you said, when you learn something new, you go, and then that leads you to the next thing.
Yeah.
Really, that's expanding your mind so much and what you think about. And so that's why it's phenomenal to have all of the information becoming available. And it makes my work today is so much more fun. I always had a good time doing it, but now, I mean, I talk with people in sessions all over the world. I mean, it's shocking to me. I live out in the woods. I live outside of a very small town. And when I say out in the woods, I mean in the forest. And yet, any given day, I might be talking with someone in Australia. I talk with people in India. I've talked with people in the Middle East. I've talked with people in Lebanon and Dubai. And I've talked with people in Russia and England and Norway and Sweden. I don't think there's any country now that I haven't spoken with a human being. And that is phenomenal, because everybody together, we are all in. And when people, there's differences, and the governments try to divide us and all that stuff, but on the ground, human beings on the ground, you, me, the people, the person who hands you a coffee in the morning, the people at the grocery store that I run into, all of us are all waking up all at the same time. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's true, because I was just today thinking about if my daughter is right now in a British school, and my aunt was talking about how there's this Indian school where there's a lot more activities. So I thought, okay, maybe I should put her into the Indian school, but then she might be only with Indians. I want her to explore and have, communication with all the other nationalities. But
Right, right.
when I think about it, for me, it doesn't matter because we are connected. I speak to everybody from all the different parts of the world, and we speak the same language. It doesn't matter where we are from.
That's right. That's right. Because the bottom line at this point is that all souls are starting to wake up to the idea of, hey, everybody wants to be warm at night. Everybody just wants to have enough food and be happy and love one another. And everybody really, at the base of it, we all want to help other people. Like, none of us, if you and I were in a car driving and saw somebody fall off their bike, we'd pull over. And it wouldn't matter what their nationality was or what their ethnic, wouldn't matter who they loved or who they married or what religion. We would pull over and say, "Are you okay?" And that's really how most people on the earth are. Our governments and our social kind of strata, they want us to think that we're all so different and divided, but really we're not. We're not
Yeah.
really. Because if somebody's having trouble, the group of people usually will say, hey, let's go help them. Let's fix this. Let's figure this out. And that's the power. You see, that's the powerful piece. And then you have all of this spiritual opening going on at the same time. And it really stops you from being able to unsee it. Once you start to learn about spiritual and your soul and what's going on in the world and off-world species and different things, it's almost like you can't go backwards. You
Yeah,
you
you
can't
can.
then you can't pretend then that you don't know what you know, right? You can't
Yeah.
pretend anymore. And so
Yeah.
you continue to grow because you have to. That's what you have to do.
True. What does Aralam talk about how jobs are going to change in the next 10, 50, 20 years?
Yep. So Aralam's hand is up. Aralam's speaking. So Tanya, this has less to do with jobs and more to do with how money on the planet is sort of controlled and how money is utilized and what money truly is. There are planets and planets that are in the Milky Way galaxy. There are planets that do not handle money in the same way that Earth does. Earth is going to go through a transformation. There will have to be a kind of reckoning. And when I say reckoning, I don't mean a complete destruction of everything that is money and how money is used. But there's going to have to be, and there are people talking about this, there will be in the future, and not immediately, but in the next 20 Earth years, particularly after the off-world species come, there's going to be for some time a kind of a dual system. The dual system is going to be that every human being, when they draw their first breath, is likely going to be given some type of a living stipend, meaning you'll never be without a home. You'll never be without power, because when free power happens, it's going to be as if, and I will utilize this, it's going to be as if everyone on the planet will have something they hold in their hand like this, which will generate enough free, clean energy to actually energize their home and four homes around them. So when everyone has that kind of power, everyone will be able to have free energy, free fuel. So at some point, there has to be this place where money is something that, yes, if you want to have extra things, you have the right to make more, to get more. But if you don't want to do that, you also have the right to have free energy, a basic income, and just grow organic strawberries if that's what you want to do. Do you see? Because there are whole planets where everyone is cared for at a basic level, but then anyone who wants to do more, strive for more, learn more, help more, create more, has the ability to do that as well. So you're not taking anything from one group in order to make another group solvent. You're saying there are two ways to do this. And on Earth, there's going to be this duality for a while, because it's going to take time to not completely destroy the system, but to let everyone sort of move and get used to the system and find their way into one or either both of them. Does that make sense? Every human would be always having the basic sort of care and income, but any human that wants to can also decide that they want to do more than that. The other thing I can tell you is this, is that the taxes, the way that taxes are held by governments across the world now, that's going to go away. Still Aralam speaking. I don't talk politics at all normally, and this isn't a political thing. It's that every human being on the planet has the right to be on the planet. Yes, there have to be certain governmental programs that keep your water clean, that keep your streets clean, but not to the degree where they are controlling the masses with it. And that's what's happening. So the control base is really what this is going to be. So when you ask me about jobs, all of the jobs are not going to go away all at once, but it's going to change. And many of the jobs will go away. I, however, am not a proponent, still Aralam speaking, I am not a proponent of AI where it is controlling all of society. So sentient AI is a kind of a life form in a way that usually, if left of its own devices, does not work out well for the organic species on a planet. So I am not a proponent of that. However, if you have AI that's going to build cars for you, as long as there's some oversight by a humanoid, that is a perfectly good thing. So there's going to be this real distribution and redistribution, but not in a way where you're going to have half of the population suddenly without and half of the population suddenly with everything. And that's really where the population now is anyway. Aralam's still speaking. There's this gigantic monetary gap. And so that's going to come together. The other piece of this is this. When off-world species are here, it will become available and known to the human race that you don't have to stay on Earth. What if you could take your whole family to a different planet in a matter of 2 days' time travel to start a completely different life? What if you were, as I said, an organic farmer, and you knew that there was a planet where everyone on that planet organic farmed for their whole solar system? They were the food, the organic farming planet. What if you could take your whole family there and still visit Earth once or twice a year? Would you make that choice? You may, because humans are going to have these kinds of choices. It's real, it's coming. So at that point, if a third of the population goes to other places, right, that changes the dynamic again. So everything is in flux and everything is going to look different. And this is what we call the great falling away. Here in creation on the planet Earth, the great falling away, for the first time, You're at the end of the seventh age of man. You're working into the eighth age of man. This is the first time where the great falling away is not going to be of the human species. It's going to be of everything that's been controlling the human species. So the freedom coming for the human species is going to be exponential to the 100th degree, exponential. So I'm going to say this. This is me speaking. That was a great question. And everything he just said to you right there, I've never heard him say that to anybody. So I just learned a whole bunch myself. So, but does that answer it? So really it's going to be, it isn't just like he said, I guess it's not just about the jobs. It's also just the whole idea that our whole system is going to be different. The whole thing is the whole toy box, Tanya, is going to be turned upside down, but not in a way that everyone's going to be screaming and running for the hills. Right. And so it's hard to see. I also like what he's saying about the dual kind of money system, right? And he didn't mention Bitcoin or any of that. And I don't think that's what he's talking about. But the idea too would be if, in other words, if you had the freedom to say, okay, I know I'm never going to be without shelter. I know that I'll have baseline amount of food to eat. I know that I'm not going to be out on the street living under a bridge. Okay, well, if I know that, then how creative, how much of this will you do do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you're an artist, but you know that your basic needs are taken care of, then think about the amazing art that you could go out and do. Now, could you do art and barter or do art for more money to get better things? Yes, but you'd never be out on the street. So you could always do the thing. Or if you're an architect or if you're a doctor or whatever you are, right?
You know, in the Essenes community, right, when Dolores Cannon was speaking about, apparently at that in the like, so what the book said is that Jesus was dropped off at the Essenes community where he grew up and he learned about life and everything over there. And there, the women and the men, they had equal opportunity to learn. They learned maths, physics, astrology, every single thing. There was no money in that community.
No. Mm-mm. No, you're
Yeah.
right about that. You're right about that. And so Aralam's hand is up. Aralam's speaking. With the Essene community, there was no money because whatever your strength was, so everyone could get the training, anything that they wanted to do, but whatever your strength was, that is where you put into the community. So if you were obviously the best at farming or the best at astrology or the best at caregiving to children or the best at making good food or the best at hunting or or building, right? You would be able to do whatever made your heart sing, if you will, and do it. And that's what you put into the community. So that was your sort of money, if you will, right? That was your commodity. And so this is how that community got so powerful and so strong for the time that it did, because that works. Then in modern situations on modern planets that are more evolved than Earth, still Aralam speaking, on planets that are technologically far above Earth, right? Way evolved more. They not only have that kind of a structure, but they also have that basic needs taken care of as well, right? So you would be able to go into your communities doing what is your sort of superpower, if you will, but you also have your basic needs met at the same time. So it allows you that security. It allows you to be able to sleep at night. It allows you to understand that you don't have to struggle. It takes the fear of complete loss out of the equation. And at that point, you begin to have your greatness. You can work your greatness from there because there's nothing that's going to take you away. There's nothing that's going to be pulled out from under you. And that's a spiritual thing as well as a physical monetary thing, right? It is.
True.
So yeah, interesting with the Essenes. Yeah.
What would be one of the biggest breakthrough when it comes to technology and medicine in the next 5 to 10 years?
Aralam speaking. Aralam speaking. So the big breakthrough in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be firstly around frequency medicine, and sort of dovetailed with that is going to be around the medical beds. And the reason that this is because the actual, and you hear people talking about med beds, medical beds, the actual med bed technology was partially reversed from alien technology. So there was this partial reversal through governments. But that technology is going to start to come out in the next 5 to 6 years. But frequency medicine is something that is real. Frequency, using frequency to kill cancer, using frequency to stabilize the blood sugar, using frequency for every kind of possible sort of medical issue. Now, if you break your leg and you need to have surgery, that is something that, yes, frequency can help heal once the bones are put back together on this planet. On other planets, there is technology that would have the whole thing done with energetic frequency medicine, right? Earth is not quite there. But in the next 20 years, when off-world species arrive, they're going to bring the kind of medicine that I speak of, where there will be no more cutting. There'll be no need to cut into anybody anytime. That will be something of the past, right? And Earth is right on the cusp of that. Right on the cusp of that. But in the next 5 to 10 years, look for frequency medicine, look for the Rife machine, look for medical beds.
Oh, interesting. When you say the off-world species would come, would we actually get to see? Will everyone get to see, or just the people who have their third eye open get to see?
Aralam speaking. So about 9 years out from now, and I started talking about this last year and was saying 10 years, but about 9 Earth years out from now. And you understand right now, the governments on planet Earth, they are panicking and they're trying very hard to start to leak out information because they don't want the humanity on Earth to understand that they've been lied to all of this time. So they want to have some cause to be able to say, oh, we told you that. We shared that with you. But they haven't. They haven't. So when the off-world species come in, everyone is going to know. It will be known. It will be known. It will not be something that you have to continue to guess at. About 9 years from now, there will come a time when it is a known entity. Everyone will see it. Many technicians and medical professionals and social, governmental, there'll be many, many fields on Earth where people, humanoids, will be working with off-world species in real time.
Sheesh. That is so cool. You know, there are movies in Indian movies where human beings fall in love with the off-world species, and then it's something terrible happens, and God gets angry and stuff like that. Is there any truth to it?
So, Aralam speaking. Uh, in ancient history, on Earth, there were times when off-world species would come in and sort of implant their bloodline. But right now, none of that is being allowed. None of that is being allowed now. But in history, it was at certain times. The other issue is that often off-world species do not have the same genetic biomarkers that humans do. So it's difficult for them to sort of be together and produce offspring. But the love part absolutely would be possible, except that right now it's not happening because of where Earth is. So Earth is getting ready for this shift. Everything that every off-world species looking in on Earth now, they are literally looking at Earth as a kind of an egg that is about to crack open and a new bird is coming out, right? This is how they sort of are looking. So they're just all waiting and watching until the cracks start to appear and it begins to happen. And so nothing new is being interjected other than information for Earthlings.
Interesting. Since Aralam is at the place where no new souls are coming into the planet and all that, and once we come here, we completely forget why we came here for, right? Is there any clues that we could get? How can I get a clue about why did I come here? And is there something that he could tell us about what actually goes on in the back before someone comes here onto the planet?
So, Aralam speaking. So, before, as a soul, when you decided to come into this lifetime, you went to what I refer to in the book as the area of the forgetting. So, your contracted lifetime guide, which every human soul on planet Earth now has one, I am Melissa's. Your guide takes you to the place of forgetting. This is where your soul sort of sits in this protected area of energy and you coalesce into something much smaller. Because when your soul is here between lifetimes, it is vastly more huge than what it is sitting in your chest now, your soul, right? So you coalesce down and you forget the lobby here creation, you forget your past lives, so that when you come into the lifetime, you're coming in clean. You're coming in to have experiences that you already have put in your lifetime, challenges and lovely experiences and possibility timelines and possibility arcs. However, the caveat to this right now is that 50 years ago, souls would come in with complete memory loss, no memory of past lifetimes, no memory of the time between in creation. Right now, about 38 to 40% of the souls, you being one of them, Melissa being one of them, born onto the planet are having much more memory when they come through. So this is also helping with the spiritual growth. So when you say that you come in with no memory, most of the souls on planet Earth now are coming in with much more memory of creation. They're coming in with remembering that there's more, having a feeling, a sensation that it's bigger than what I've been told. I have this feeling like I know that there's more, right? That's the memory of creation, still Aralam speaking. So that's changed because of where Earth is. Because on this traverse out of this seventh, at the end of this seventh age of man, this traverse up for everyone, it's important to have that pull, right? It's important to have that pull back to creation, to understand there's more to you, more to the world, more to the universe. And so you came through with more memory in this lifetime than you've had in the hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes that predated this one.
Interesting. How did Aralam get to the position that he is in right now? Did God give him this job, or how did that happen?
It's so funny. Aralam's hand is up. Aralam speaking. So you yourself have been a contracted soul guide for other souls before. Being a contracted soul guide for a soul who is incarnate in any lifetime, whether Earth or any other planet, it's an agreement between you and the soul. So Melissa and I made an agreement when she was coming in that my specialty is in communications. Her specialty is in communications. We made an agreement because we've had a lot of work together, right? And so the way that for me personally, I had had well over 2,000 incarnations off planet Earth and a few on Earth. This time, when I came over, I decided I'm not going to incarnate really at all anymore. Everyone can decide that. But when you decide not to incarnate, often what you do is decide to teach, to become a counselor, to do work here in creation in the universe in your specialty. And so this is how you end up becoming a contracted lifetime guide or soul guide. So you've done this work before because you are not a young soul, right? This is how you do it. You don't have to do it. You're never forced. This is something else. Still Aralam speaking. People often believe that you're forced to reincarnate. You have to keep reincarnating because of karma. This isn't true. The karmic wheel, so to speak, is always chosen. You could have one lifetime, come back to creation and say, I am never doing that again. I am not doing that. I'm going to stay an energetic soul here in creation. I'm going to have a good time. I'm not going to do that again. But what happens always is that the experiences that souls want to have cannot be had in the perfection of creation. You can't have your heart broken here. You can't suffer a disease here. You can't win something here. Meaning you can have the experience, but you're not in a body having it. And there is something, whether it's a Pleiadian body, an Arcturian body, or some other species, or humanoid, there are certain experiences that can only be had when you're incarnate. And the draw of the lesson and the draw of the joy is immense. If you live a vacation lifetime with another soul and you're in love the whole lifetime, you have a beautiful marriage, you have a nice home, you have wonderful children, it's a lifetime filled with joy. You can choose to have those as well. Very few challenges. Why would you not do it? You're never forced to do that. You're never forced to have challenging lifetimes either. And yet souls time and time again will come in to have those lessons. At some point, any soul can determine that they're going to stay in creation. They're going to learn. They're going to travel. They're going to help others, right? You can do that anytime. If you cross back over after this lifetime and you say, I'm done, I don't want to have any more lifetimes, you can go and do anything you want to here in creation as a fully fledged soul. But ultimately, almost always, you'll be called back with your core group or some other group that need you to come into a lifetime to help them with challenges. And this is how the reincarnation works. The reason that your karma does not follow you lifetime to lifetime is because every time your soul crosses back into creation, you go to your lifetime review. In that lifetime review, you do one thing. In that lifetime review, you'll stand usually with your contracted soul guide, and you will feel in real time, feel every single thing that you ever made anyone else in the lifetime feel. These are beautiful feelings, horrible feelings, and everything in between. You relive it. You feel it right there. You feel it in real time. You don't feel it like you're watching a movie that's making you tear up. You feel it in your own body, in your own heart, in your own soul, as if you are the person. That's where the karma is worked out, so that you come back to every lifetime as a fresh soul. So I'm going to say this about that. Sometimes people really hate, this is me speaking. Sometimes people hate it because they'll say to Aralam, this lifetime, I must be working out some terrible karma from the last lifetime, right? Because and when Aralam says to people, no, it's not how it works. It isn't how it works. You're never forced, and your karma is always worked out in that life review. So think about this, Tanya. If you know, and this is the truth, if you know that you're going to get to your life review and you're going to get to feel in real time every single thing that you've ever made any other human being in the lifetime feel, everything, every moment, right? You're going to feel that yourself as if you're them and not you. It makes you think to yourself, maybe, right? Maybe I want to think about how much good can I get in? How do I make people feel? Do I freak out over little things, and am I yelling and pointing fingers and being horrible? Because really, it's easy to just not do that to people. And also, what if you got to your life review and you get to have a life review where you just feel all of the joy that you had other people feeling, right? All of the good things that you gave people or did for people or with people, where they felt love and joy. And I love when Tanya's in the room with me, and gosh, this was fun. And oh, that's good. And I love you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the life review you want to have. And it's not about being perfect in the lifetime. It's about at least thinking about, how am I affecting the people around me, right? How am I affecting the people around me? And it's and to roll it back to who I am, when my mother got to her life review, she got to feel everything that she ever made me feel, right?
How do you know?
That's how it works. Her
Oh,
life
when,
review,
right. Okay.
everybody, that's how it works for all of us. So the reason I say that too is because, by the same token, if I repelled her because of the way she treated me, because she was an alcoholic and a drug addict and different things, how did I make her feel as well? Was I like judgmental? How did I make her feel? Did I release her? Did I forgive her in a way if I could? All of that stuff matters, because when I get to my life review, I've got 2 ex-husbands behind me, right? I say this to people. I've had 2 marriages and I left both of them. And they were nice people, but I was remarrying my father. My dad was an alcoholic. He was a lovely man, but he was a wreck and he was an alcoholic. So, but when I get to my life review, those ex-husbands, if they laid in bed at 3:00 in the morning and cried because I'd left and they didn't want me to, and I broke their heart, I'm going to get to feel that. And I know it, right? So it makes you look at your life with a little bit more purpose around, how do I make others feel? And also simple things like, if you're in the car and you're feeling a little road ragey and somebody cuts you off and you want to give them the one finger signal, do you stop and think, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to add to that, right? I mean, that's where the karma happens. You get to feel your impact. So the more good you can do, and again, it's not about being perfect. I mean, everybody's got bad days, but all the things that you can control, why not? Right? Why not be loving? Why not be better to people? Because you're going to feel all of that as well.
Can we not skip the life review?
It's so funny. I know people will say to me, "Oh, I don't like this." I've had sessions with people and then they'll email me after and they'll say, "I've been thinking about this life review thing." And it's really, I'm not thrilled with this. But do you know what Aralam says to people too about the life review? And I've done this in my life. So say that you had a friend I'm just making this up. You have a friend in high school. At one point, you found another friend and you started ignoring your old friend, and you knew that it hurt her feelings, but you were done with her, whatever. Girls can be mean. Well, when you're much older, if you think about it and you think, I bet that really hurt her. Like, I think she was probably really hurt by that. If you want to be incredibly brave and you want to work on your life review in the lifetime, which you can do, you could find out where she lives and you could send her an email or Facebook her or something and say, hey, you know what? I was thinking about you the other day and we were so close in junior high and I ended up being friends with so and so. And I want you to know something. I think that probably really hurt you. And if it did, I'm sorry about that because I was young and I was being selfish and I wasn't thinking and I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't about you. I was just being a kid and whatever, but I'm sorry. Say that you let that person off the hook because here's the thing, you don't know how that affected them. So when you let them off the hook, and this also is very uncomfortable and people hate this, but it works. So if she is released and has peace and joy and feels good about that, when you get to your lifetime review, that's what you're going to feel. See what I mean? You're going to feel the healing that you did around that. And it's powerful. But think about how much sense that makes in a way. Like it makes a lot of sense that it's that way. And again, you can take that, believe it or don't believe it, but Aralam stands on that firmly that that's how the life review works and that's how karma works. And everything that you can heal within the lifetime, anything that you can heal with another human being in the lifetime, doesn't mean you're saying, I think everything you did was right or any of that. But if you can release it and heal in the lifetime, it's so powerful for you when you get back over. So powerful.
In the Course in Miracles, it says that a mistake. So let's say, because, there was a situation where I felt like what I did was wrong. And then I read the Course in Miracles and it says that when you look at it, go back to the time right before you committed that mistake and look at what you were thinking. What was your thinking
intention?
Yeah, what was the intention, right? What were you going through? Did you expect this to be the outcome? So the book says that sin is wrong perception. It just means that it is not true. This is all just a reality. This is not the reality. It's just
right.
What is Aralam's thoughts on that?
So, Aralam speaking. So when you think about sin as it's written biblically, Aralam speaking, when you think about sin as it's written biblically, often in your lifetime, those people who are the most challenging for you, the ones who you feel have sinned against you, often they came into the lifetime to give you that lesson. So sin in and of itself isn't sort of damning anyone to hell. But here's the issue. If you have someone in your lifetime who's very difficult for you, say as Melissa's mother was for her, the way that the sin is worked out, if you don't work it out in the lifetime, you are going to feel the outcome. So the book in Miracles, that Course of Miracles is saying, look at your intention, because your intention is specific. If you intend to cause someone pain, that's a very different thing than if you accidentally cause someone pain and you didn't intend them to be in pain. So that's true. So there's truth in that writing, particularly where sin is involved. So sin in and of itself is not something that's going to damn you to hell forever in the way that religions say. But if you specifically go out of your way to hurt a person, you are going to feel that in the life review. And that's where it gets worked out. And what Melissa was just talking to you about is if you can sort of forgive yourself and let the person know if you sinned specifically against someone and the intention was there, then you sort of need to let that other soul off the hook. In other words, let them know, still Aralam speaking, let them know this wasn't about anything that you did wrong. This was my choice and I'm sorry because I think it hurt you. That's the difference, because then you're taking the sin out of the question completely. You're taking it away. Do you see?
Interesting. Currently, you see a lot of people going through divorces. I'm also divorced, right? And then I see a lot of the other people, women, not wanting to get married. And men seem to take it very lightly. They are not so particular about it. If someone asks them to get married, they will probably get married, but they don't take it so seriously. And then I see a lot of women doing a lot of healing work and putting in so much efforts, but I don't see the same happening from that side of the men. What is happening in terms of, why is this happening and where is this leading us to?
So Aralam speaking, one of the biggest issues that happens, particularly in sessions where people are coming out of relationships or wanting to get into them, And I say this, the social media construct has created a kind of a chasm in the relationship construct for humans. Human beings need to have relationships that start in a face-to-face way. Human beings need to meet people face-to-face. And the reason that this is because you need to feel the energy of the other person. And when I say feel the energy, I don't mean see them, say on a screen like you and I are talking. I mean, you literally need to see them face to face, because what you're really getting is their energy body, their soul's energy, the energy in their brain stem. You're getting all of the information that's unspoken. But the social media and this video that we are talking on now, it tends to tamp all of that down so that you cannot make good decisions about that person and who they are. This is going to change. It is creating separation, and it's creating loneliness in souls. It isn't helping. It's not helping. It isn't helping to bring marriages together. It isn't helping to bring people together. In sessions, when people ask about whether they have souls coming toward them, I'll always say to them, yes, if they have a soul coming toward them to be in a relationship with, but 90% of the time, still Aralam speaking, I will say to them, this isn't someone you're going to meet online. It isn't going to be that way. It's going to be organic. A friend will introduce you, or you'll meet them at a class, or you'll meet them at your synagogue, or you'll meet them wherever, but it's not going to be over an online or a social media construct, because it takes the humanity away. The information that we're sharing today is great and wonderful information for anyone who hears it. And there's a certain amount of ability to understand the truth in what you're hearing. But as far as having personal, interpersonal relationships between any two loving souls, that physical piece of it is necessary. You need to be able to be 2 feet away from another human being and have a conversation, because it isn't the conversation, it's everything else that you're interpreting about the person. And that has to be done in person. So that is where this is going, but that is going to be turning around. There is this movement with humans understanding this, and this is going to turn back around. It has to. It has to. So me speaking, how do you feel about that? I mean, Aralam talks to people about that, and I 1,000% agree. I agree with that 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
Right now, I'm seeing something which is different now. There's a lot more apps that are coming out, which is making people meet each other. So there's a time left app. Then there is another community, like a, what is it called? Single app or something, where they don't. So what the app does is they will not tell you to message each other. They'll say, this is the date and time. Everyone has to show up. So they show up, and I'm seeing so many more people doing that. It's that community thing is coming up.
Well, and yeah, and what Aralam is saying here too, and you know this, is that you have, if you and I sat down, I mean, we're having a great conversation, but if you and I sat down at a restaurant together and we were sitting 2 feet apart and talking and eating and drinking whatever tea, it's a really different thing because you're, even if you're telling me a story and I'm sitting 2 feet in front of you and I'm listening to the story that you're telling me, I am getting information from you. And this is what Aaron was saying, spiritual information, energetic information. I'm literally getting your heart chakra coming at me. I'm getting all of this electromagnetic, spiritual, physical, scientific information from you that you cannot get over Bumble or Tinder or even any of them, or YouTube or any of them. You can't get everything you need, because you know this too. You could see someone online and think, oh, this person is attractive, or this person is someone that I would like. And you can go sit with that person, and it doesn't matter how attractive they are. You can immediately think, when you're 2 feet away from them, I'm never going to slow dance with this person. I'm just not. I mean, do you know what I'm saying by that? And that's not just a woman thing. You can sit with somebody and think, I'm never going to kiss this person goodnight. I'm just not going to do it. It's just, this isn't my person. And the reason you know it is the feel of it. It's not just the seeing, it's the feeling. And social media has taken, the internet, if you want to, has taken that out of it. But Aralam says it's swinging back around anyway. And he says it's the best thing. It's going to have to be.
The way I got married was also online. Yeah, so we have these apps where the families put each other on the app.
Right.
It's like in Indian there are apps like that. So it's like, okay, this family is good, this family is fine. I mean, they match. So then it's like we were speaking online, not so much, but whatever, we're speaking online, and it's felt like fine, okay. But the moment, and then our engagement, wedding, everything was fixed. That's how it is in Indian
Yes, I
community. This
know.
is,
Right.
yeah.
Everything is, yeah. Yeah.
But the moment I met the person, I instantly knew that this is not the one.
Right.
But yeah, but then in our Indian community, we also have this thing where it says that, you spend time with someone for 30 years or
Yes.
50
Yep.
years, then
Yeah.
you
They
grow
can
on.
become the one. Yeah.
Yeah, they can
But
become the
but
one.
here's the thing. But here's the thing. And for you, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the whole arrangement of it. But you almost think, should there be this like 3 month or 4 month or 6 month kind of time buffer where now you're going to sort of date and spend a lot of time dating and hanging out together and really, really being together? Because then at least you would sort of know, you'd have that feeling like and I'm not talking about passion. Like, I'm not a person who believes that. I mean, yeah, there's some people, they fall in love at first sight. It isn't even about passion. It's about that feeling of, does this person feel trustworthy to me? Do they fit me energetically? Do I feel any kind of a happy, safe link with this person? And I think that online, you just can't get that. You can't get it.
Yeah, it definitely not happening. So, but yeah, things like people, kids these days, they're not like how dumb I was before. They're like much more intelligent and smarter. They know what to do. But that was not the case for me back then. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And, I have had, is there any final message from, like, I can go on talking with Aralam
Yeah, no, I
forever.
know. I know. What you do is you just have me on again. Just have us on again. Yeah,
Yeah, done.
yeah.
I'm gonna do
Yes,
that. Yeah, I'm gonna
absolutely
do
do
that.
that. So
What
yes,
is,
as a final
yeah.
question.
No, as is there any final message that Aralam has for us?
Okay, so Aralam speaking, Aralam speaking. What I would say right now to everyone listening is that, and I said this earlier, but I really want to give you the gravity with this. Everything and anything that draws you from a spiritual level or a learning level, technology even, where it's spiritually sort of based, look into that. Follow your instinct and understand this as well. And this message is so important, and that's this: everything is changing. So if you're waking up on a certain morning and you're thinking everything feels off kilter to me, everything feels a little different, it is. Everything is shifting, but I want you to understand you're going to be fine. Humanity is going to be fine. Everyone is working toward the same place. It's going to be fine. Changes are going to happen. You're meant to be resilient and move with those changes. Okay. This isn't a time for fear, and it's not a time for you to sort of close your eyes and stop listening to new information. Listen to the new information. Use your discernment. Understand that you have a soul. Understand that you're connected at all times to creation through that soul. No one can take that connection from you. If you can stay balanced in that way, find good teachers, understand your own intuition, and start to grow into this, as I said, eighth age of man. The earth is moving in that direction. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay, that's Aralam. Me speaking. It's been awesome to talk to you. Awesome, 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 awesome. I would love to come back. My final message would be this, and it's like Aralam said. Um, Even I, with Aralam's input, I can wake up certain mornings and think, what is going on? Holy smoke, what's going on? But the best thing to do is not panic. Also, don't feed into fear, because there's so much kind of fear mongering going on right now, which is not helping. When I say fear mongering, I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying, you know, it's almost like the feeling is that we can all make this ascension, this transition. We can all get through this. But then there's this other kind of fear-based feel on the planet, and it's coming mostly from governments and social institutions and all kinds of people who are like screaming with their hair on fire. We don't need to do that at all. We don't need to do any of that. So just learn. And as Aralam said too, if you feel compelled to learn something new or to look at something new, do it. Do it. What can it hurt? You don't have to share with anybody either. You can just do it. And it's a great time for that. So I would say to people, also love the people around you. And anybody that you can sort of, if you have any relationship drama in your life, anybody that you can release and say, look, you know what? Let's just agree to disagree. I love you. Let's agree to disagree. Anybody that you can release in that way, do it, because it's only going to help you in the end. So, yeah.
Melissa, a question to you is if what do you think would have happened if you weren't channeling?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I love music, so I'm a kind of a musician. I love that. I was so young when it started happening. I can't imagine. I think it's what I came here for. So I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have been an incredible quilt maker. I don't know.
You
I
never
don't
even
know.
thought about it. Like, do you wish
No, I
you
haven't.
have you ever wished you had like a normal human experience at any point of time?
So, there are occasionally times when I'll say to a friend or a family member, I'll say, "Boy, I'm tired today," or "I've got a lot going on today. If I could put the genie back in the bottle, would I? Would I?" And but here's the thing, I have the right to do that anytime I want to. That's the other beautiful thing about this. Aralam says to me all the time, "Hey, you're never forced to do this." So if I woke up tomorrow and said to Aralam, "You know what? I'm tired of this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm closing my doors and I'm going to go join a bowling league and I'm just going to, I'm going to start like making macaroni and cheese salads and just doing nothing." You know what he would say to me? "Okay." you know but then a couple of weeks would go by and I would be like, "Yeah, okay, now we got to start writing again," or it's yeah. So I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do, but it's good. It's all good. And like today when we're done, I'll close my doors and then I'll go get some lunch and I'll do something very regular. I try to do a lot of regular things when I'm not working.
It's wonderful. It's like you live in a magical world. And when you live in such a magical world, why would you want to come out of it, right? Like that's what I find all
Well,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah, so it's good. It's good.
Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Can you please tell us
Yes.
more about the work that you do and where we can find you?
So I do one-on-one sessions. I'm getting ready to start to do group sessions, which people seem interested in, and that would be good. I have a YouTube channel, which is my name. The book is Being Humans. You can find that on Amazon. I was lucky. I've got like 120 random people that left me really good reviews on Amazon. So that's really nice because I published myself, so that was good. But you can find me at melissagatesperry.com on YouTube. I'm Melissa Gates Perry. And then the book Being Humans. But you can find me in all those places. And have everyone have a great holiday season, whatever your holiday looks like or does not look like, I would say. But I'd love to come back. I'd love to come back.
That's awesome. Melissa, you've been such an awesome guest. You and
Thank you.
Aralam, both of you have been like phenomenal. Great
Oh, thank
energy,
you.
just happy people. I'm so happy that I got to speak to you. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Melissa, and let's speak
Thank you.
again.
All right.